In the next chapter, we'll take a closer look at one of the biggest distractions masquerading as progress: tools. From apps to systems to platforms, many people are overwhelmed not by lack of technology but by too much of it. We'll unpack why tools don't matter until systems do, and how you can stop chasing the next best thing and start using what you already have to move forward faster. Chapter 11: Tools don't matter until systems do. In an age of endless options, tools have become a distraction disguised as progress. Every week there's a new app, a new platform, a new productivity system promising to change your life. People spend hours testing features, customizing dashboards, and downloading templates, convinced they're being productive. But most of this effort is a well-disguised form of procrastination. They're not building their future, they're just reorganizing their indecision. The truth is simple and often uncomfortable: tools don't matter until systems do. Without a clear structure, a repeatable process, and a defined purpose, no tool will save you from disorganization or inconsistency. A tool is just an amplifier. It will speed up whatever system you already have in place. If your system is unclear or broken, the tool will amplify the chaos. If your system is well designed, the tool will enhance it. This is why some people thrive using a simple notebook while others struggle despite using the most advanced software available. It's not the sophistication of the tool, it's the clarity of the system behind it. People confuse movement with progress, thinking that switching tools or learning new platforms will fix their problems. But switching tools is like changing pens when you haven't decided what to write. The core of any effective system is not the tool but the process. How you decide what matters. How you schedule your time. How you execute and review your work. These elements don't require a specific app, they require discipline, reflection, and intentional design. Once these are in place, the right tool becomes obvious. It fits naturally because it's supporting something that already works. Until then, adding tools is like building faster trains without laying track. You'll move quickly, but you won't go anywhere meaningful. Many people delay important work because they believe they're not ready. They think they need to find the perfect tool first, the perfect planner, the perfect calendar system, the perfect project management software. But readiness doesn't come from gear, it comes from clarity. You don't need the best tool, you need a tool you'll actually use. A simple spreadsheet used daily is more powerful than a complicated platform used inconsistently. Consistency will always outperform complexity. A tool is only valuable when it serves a repeatable behavior that aligns with your system. This mindset shift frees you from the pressure to be constantly optimizing your tools. You stop chasing new apps and start refining your process. You begin asking better questions. What am I trying to accomplish? What system do I need to get there? How can I simplify my workflow so that success becomes easier to repeat? These are the questions that move you forward. Tools are there to serve these answers, not replace them. When selecting a tool, simplicity should be your guide. Choose tools that are easy to learn, flexible enough to adapt, frictionless enough to use consistently. Avoid tools that require constant tweaking, steep learning curves, unnecessary complexity. Your tools should reduce cognitive load, not increase it. They should help you think less about the process and more about the work itself. The more you can automate or streamline, the more energy you preserve for deep focus and creative effort. It's also important to separate tools by function. Don't try to make one tool do everything. Have a clear division between where you store information, where you track tasks, where you plan your calendar, where you communicate. When each tool serves a distinct role in your system, your workflow becomes cleaner and your mind more focused. Confusion often arises when tools overlap or are used inconsistently. Establish clear roles and rules, and your system will begin to operate smoothly. Tools should also match your environment and identity. If you work best with tactile experiences, use analog tools like notebooks, whiteboards, or index cards. If you thrive in digital ecosystems, use apps that sync across your devices and integrate with your routines. Don't use tools that require you to become someone you're not. Your system should reflect your natural tendencies while helping you evolve in the direction you want to grow. It should meet you where you are and guide you forward, not frustrate you into abandoning progress. There's also the danger of tool addiction, the belief that one more download, one more optimization, one more customization will finally make everything click. But perfection is a trap. The pursuit of the perfect tool is often a way to delay the discomfort of execution. At some point, you have to put the tools down and do the work. That's where momentum lives, not in the setup, but in the follow-through. The best builders in any field keep their tool sets simple. They choose a few core platforms and master them. They don't waste time reinventing systems that already work. They understand that effectiveness comes not from having more tools, but from using fewer tools more effectively. Their energy goes into refining systems, not chasing novelty. That discipline creates consistency. And consistency compounds into trust, impact, and freedom. Ultimately, tools are there to extend your system, not define it. They are servants, not saviors. They can't make you consistent. They can't give you clarity. They can't build habits, protect your time, or align your values. Only you can do that. Once you do, the tools become easy to select, and even easier to replace if needed. Your system becomes the anchor. The tool is just the extension. If your system is built on clear values, repeatable habits, defined outcomes, and structured time, then almost any tool will work. And if your system is unclear, no tool will save it. That's the real takeaway. Before you buy, upgrade, or install anything new, make sure your system is worth scaling. Because all a tool will ever do is multiply what's already there. In the next chapter, we'll explore a different way of thinking about growth, one that moves beyond the obsession with giant leaps and focuses instead on the quiet power of layers. You'll learn why building in layers creates durability, how it keeps your system sustainable, and why long-term results come from depth, not just speed. Chapter 12, Think in Layers, Not Leaps. In a world obsessed with overnight success, big launches, and dramatic transformations, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that progress must be measured in leaps. We've been conditioned to look for massive change, bold moves and visible milestones that prove we're growing. But the truth is that most lasting change happens quietly. It builds in layers, not leaps. And the systems that endure, the ones that actually support abundance, are almost always the ones built patiently, brick by brick, day by day. Leaps are exciting. They grab attention. They make for great stories. But they are also risky, unstable, and unsustainable without the layers that support them. The person who suddenly transforms their life, loses the weight, makes the money, or hits the milestone, usually did a lot of invisible work before that leap ever showed up. What looks like a breakthrough to the outside world is often the result of deeply layered structure beneath the surface, habits formed, identity shaped, priorities clarified, distractions removed. When you think in layers, you begin to appreciate progress in its truest form. You stop chasing dramatic outcomes and start asking better questions. What am I reinforcing today? What is this layer adding to the system I'm building? How will this habit support the next phase of growth? It shifts the focus from intensity to consistency. You begin to see your time as an investment, your routines as infrastructure, and your habits as scaffolding. Nothing is wasted. Every small effort becomes a contribution to the larger architecture. Thinking in layers also protects you from the burnout that comes from sprinting toward results. It gives you permission to grow in a way that honors your energy and respects your season of life. Not every chapter demands peak performance. Some chapters are about laying foundations, deepening roots, recovering strength, refining direction. When you think in leaps, you expect every day to be revolutionary. When you think in layers, you understand that greatness is built in quiet, disciplined steps. 1 page written. 1 habit kept. 1 hour of focus. Layered enough times, these actions build something unshakable. This mindset requires trust in the process, trust in the structure, trust that what you're building matters even if it isn't visible yet. The challenge is that layered progress doesn't always feel exciting. It feels ordinary. You show up, do the work, and move forward incrementally. There are no fireworks, no sudden applause. And yet, these are the moments where the future is actually being built. Because when the leap does come, when the opportunity appears, the skill is needed, the door opens, you're ready. You've already built the system that can hold it. Thinking in layers also creates adaptability. When you build in leaps, everything is tied to one big outcome. If that outcome fails, everything collapses. But if you've built in layers, one setback doesn't destroy your momentum. Your identity is stable. Your routines are intact. You can pivot, adjust, and keep building. The structure holds because it's not dependent on a single event, it's reinforced across time. That's how you build resilience, by layering systems that support you even when motivation is low or circumstances shift. The people who live in consistent abundance are rarely the loudest. They don't need to advertise their progress because they are building something real, and real doesn't need to shout. They are calm, focused, intentional. They know where they are in the process. They know which layer they're working on. And they don't confuse motion for meaning. Their systems evolve slowly but deliberately. They aren't chasing excitement, they're creating stability. And from that stability comes power. To begin thinking in layers, start by identifying which parts of your system need strengthening. Are your mornings chaotic? Build a morning layer. Is your focus fragmented? Build an environment layer. Is your creative energy scattered? Build a time block layer. Choose one area and ask, what single shift can I make here that, when repeated, will create long-term benefit? Then start reinforcing that shift until it becomes part of the structure. Don't move on until that layer is strong. Then move to the next. You don't need to transform everything at once. In fact, you shouldn't, that's the leap mindset talking. System builders know that real change comes from sustained layers, not sudden overhauls. One change at a time. One structure at a time. One win at a time. Layered. Integrated. Sustainable. This approach also deepens your self-awareness. As you build layers, you begin to notice what truly works for you, not just what sounds good in theory. You become more honest about your patterns, your limits, your energy. And that honesty allows for better design. You stop copying systems from others and start crafting a life that's uniquely yours. This is where alignment starts to become visible, the structure reflects the person, the layers match the mission. And the beauty of layers is that they compound. A small improvement today doesn't just help today, it helps tomorrow, and the next day, and the next. You save time. You reduce friction. You increase capacity. You may not see the full result immediately, but the long-term trajectory shifts. What was once hard becomes normal. What was once distant becomes expected. Layered effort becomes identity. Over time, your layered system becomes a quiet engine. It doesn't rely on constant maintenance. It doesn't fall apart under stress. It adapts, supports, and grows with you. And when challenges come, as they always do, you don't panic. You simply fall back on the layers you've built. You reset. Realign. And keep going. That's the difference between a fragile pursuit and a sustainable structure. Leaps are vulnerable. Layers are durable. Thinking in layers also helps you enjoy the journey. You no longer need to postpone joy until the leap happens. You find meaning in the process itself. Each layer becomes a win, a milestone, a form of progress worth honoring. This mindset changes your relationship with time. You stop rushing. You start building. And you realize that the life you want isn't waiting for you after the leap, it's being created now, in these ordinary, layered actions. In the next chapter, we'll explore how these layers must come together before scaling is even considered. Because too often, people try to scale without structure. They try to grow without systems. And when that happens, the very success they chase becomes the reason they break. System builders know better. They systemize before they scale. Chapter 13, Systemize before you scale. Growth is seductive. The idea of reaching more people, earning more money, expanding your influence, or multiplying your results is one of the most powerful drivers of action. But growth without structure is dangerous. It may feel exciting at first, but it quickly becomes overwhelming. What begins as opportunity turns into chaos. What was once manageable starts to collapse under its own weight. The reason is simple: scaling anything before it's been systemized is a recipe for failure. You cannot sustainably grow what you haven't made repeatable, predictable, and structurally sound. In the rush to expand, people often skip this foundational step. They take on more clients, launch more projects, say yes to more commitments, all without taking the time to refine the core processes that make the work sustainable. As a result, they end up buried in stress, constantly putting out fires, and trying to maintain a fragile structure that was never designed to support that level of output. The issue isn't that they grew too fast, it's that they scaled too soon. They tried to build higher without reinforcing the base. Systemizing means creating a foundation that runs without constant improvisation. It means defining your workflows, standardizing your operations, automating where possible, removing unnecessary complexity. When you systemize properly, growth becomes a natural extension of the structure. You no longer have to increase your effort to increase your output. You can scale with clarity, knowing your system will hold under pressure. But systemizing requires discipline. It means pausing growth long enough to build the structure that will support it. That pause often feels counterintuitive, but it's necessary. What feels like a delay is actually an investment in resilience. When you systemize, you create repeatability. Repeatability means your results are not dependent on your mood, your energy level, or your memory. They are the product of a process that works. You don't have to reinvent the wheel every time, you follow a rhythm you trust. The process. You spend less time managing chaos and more time improving outcomes. This not only increases efficiency but also creates space for better decisions and higher quality work. Systemizing also reveals weaknesses. When you begin to document and structure your workflow, you'll quickly see where friction exists, where things break down, where you're relying too much on guesswork. These insights allow you to refine, delegate, or eliminate what doesn't serve the bigger vision. It's like tuning an instrument before a performance. You want everything in harmony before you amplify the sound. Scaling without that tune-up means magnifying every flaw. The stakes are too high to wing it. One of the most valuable aspects of a systemized structure is that it allows other people to step in. If your business or personal routines only work when you're managing every detail, they are not scalable. Systemizing means creating documentation, templates, and guidelines that allow others to contribute without confusion. It means building a structure that doesn't depend entirely on you. This is how you buy back time. This is how you multiply your impact, not by doing more, but by designing systems that can run without constant supervision. This principle applies even in personal life. If your fitness routine, financial habits, or daily planning rely solely on you remembering and deciding in the moment, they are fragile. Systemizing your personal routines, batching decisions, automating bills, preparing meals, planning weekly schedules, frees up mental bandwidth. It gives you more space to focus on what matters. It gives you energy to grow without sacrificing stability. Systemizing before scaling is not just about protecting yourself from burnout, it's about building something that lasts. Many people achieve a spike in success but can't sustain it. The excitement wears off. The pace becomes unsustainable. And without systems to support the workload, they crash. They confuse momentum with structure. But momentum without structure is just speed heading toward exhaustion. Lasting success requires a machine that runs smoothly regardless of how motivated you feel. There is also a psychological benefit to systemizing. When you know your life or business is supported by structure, you feel more confident taking bold steps. You're not worried that one wrong move will unravel everything. You trust your system. That trust leads to clearer thinking, more consistent execution, a calmer internal state. Instead of scrambling to keep up with growth, you can respond to it with focus and intention. That is the kind of energy that builds legacy, not just income. The resistance to systemizing often comes from the belief that structure will limit creativity or spontaneity. But in reality, structure protects creativity. It creates the space in which innovation can thrive. When the basics are automated or streamlined, your mind is free to explore new ideas, take calculated risks, and operate from a higher level of thinking. Without that structure, you're constantly reacting, putting out fires, and using your energy to maintain the status quo rather than expanding it. To systemize effectively, begin by identifying what you do most often. These are the areas that demand a reliable process. Look at your weekly actions. What tasks repeat? What decisions are you making over and over? Where do delays, confusion, or overwhelm typically show up? Start documenting your approach. Create templates. Batch similar tasks. Use tools not to complicate things but to simplify. This is not busy work, this is construction. You are building the infrastructure that your future success will rely on. It's also important to recognize that systemizing is never finished. It evolves as you grow. New challenges will reveal new needs. That's why building systems is a mindset, not a project. You're always looking for ways to refine, simplify, and improve. But the better your initial foundation, the easier it becomes to adapt without starting from scratch. And the more you embrace systems, the less you rely on willpower or memory to keep things running. Your system becomes your second brain, it remembers, guides, and supports you. Failing is a natural desire. It's exciting to dream bigger, reach further, and do more. But real freedom comes not from rapid growth but from reliable growth, growth that is supported, sustainable, and sane. Growth that doesn't cost you your health, your peace, or your purpose. When your systems are ready, scaling becomes not just possible, but inevitable. Until then, focus on the work of preparation. Build the structure. Refine the engine. Lay the tracks. Because once you're ready to scale, you want to know that your system can carry the weight of your ambition. In the next chapter, we'll shift from building and expanding to observing and adjusting. Because no matter how strong your system is, it needs regular feedback. You'll learn how to set up feedback loops, use data wisely, and course correct without ego. Because systems aren't fixed, they're living frameworks. And the most powerful ones evolve as you do. Chapter 14, Feedback Loops and Course Correction. Every system, no matter how carefully designed, needs feedback. Without it, you're operating blind, assuming progress where there may be none, or missing small failures that will eventually grow into bigger ones. Feedback loops are not a luxury reserved for corporations or elite performers. They are essential for anyone serious about building a life that evolves. Without a system for measuring and adjusting, even the most thoughtful plans become rigid. They stagnate. They lose relevance. And ultimately, they fail. Many people avoid feedback because it feels personal. They think it's a statement about their worth or competence. But feedback, when viewed through the lens of systems thinking, is never about your identity. It's about your process. It shows you what is working, what's not, and where small shifts can lead to much better results. Systems thrive on feedback. It's how they adapt. It's how they self-correct. The more honest and consistent the feedback, the stronger and more flexible your system becomes. A feedback loop is simple in concept. You take action. You observe the result. You compare the result to the desired outcome. You make adjustments. You take action again. This cycle, repeated continuously, allows your system to evolve in real time. Without it, you end up guessing. You rely on memory, assumptions, or feelings, none of which are reliable over time. And without feedback, you risk continuing down the wrong path simply because it's familiar. There are two types of feedback every system needs. Internal feedback comes from within. It's how you feel, what you observe, the energy you bring, and the resistance you face. It's noticing that a routine is draining instead of energizing. It's realizing that a habit you once loved no longer fits the season you're in. Internal feedback is subtle, often quiet, and easy to ignore if you're not paying attention. But ignoring it leads to misalignment. External feedback comes from outside sources, data, people, results, outcomes. It's what your calendar reveals about how you actually use your time. It's the bank statement that reflects how aligned your spending is with your values. It's the client who gives you honest feedback, the mentor who challenges your assumptions, the performance review that highlights a gap you didn't see. External feedback is less emotional and more measurable. It's objective information you can analyze and act upon. Both internal and external feedback are necessary. Together, they form a complete picture. One of the most effective ways to implement feedback loops in your system is through regular review. A weekly review is a simple but powerful tool. At the end of each week, sit down and ask yourself a few essential questions. What worked well this week? What didn't? Where did I lose focus or momentum? What can I adjust for next week? These questions are not meant to criticize but to clarify. They turn vague feelings into actionable insights. They make reflection a habit instead of a crisis response. Monthly and quarterly reviews take this even further. They allow you to zoom out, to see patterns, to track progress toward longer-term goals. Without these checkpoints, it's easy to get lost in the busyness of the day-to-day and lose sight of the bigger picture. Course correction only happens when you pause long enough to check the map. These reviews are your checkpoints. They prevent drift. They help you make sure that your actions are still aligned with your values, your vision, and your season. The most important part of a feedback loop is the willingness to respond. Feedback without adjustment is just data. Action is what makes it powerful. If your morning routine no longer energizes you, change it. If your financial plan isn't producing the savings you expected, revise it. If your creative process is becoming a source of stress rather than expression, simplify it. There is no shame in adjusting your system. In fact, refusal to adjust is often the root of long-term stagnation. Pride resists feedback. Growth embraces it. Ego is the enemy of evolution. When your identity is too tightly wrapped around being right, you miss opportunities to become better. Feedback threatens ego because it exposes weakness. But it strengthens systems because it highlights truth. The systems builder sees feedback as fuel. Every insight, every data point, every uncomfortable conversation is a gift. It reveals where improvement lives. And when you begin to operate from this place, nothing becomes wasted. Mistakes become lessons. Delays become design improvements. Criticism becomes calibration. It's also important to be intentional about your feedback sources. Not all feedback is equal. The internet is full of opinions. Social media is full of noise. Just because someone has a voice doesn't mean they have valuable insight. Select feedback from people who understand your vision. People who want to see you grow. People who have built systems of their own. Choose sources that challenge you with clarity, not just criticism. And listen closely to the patterns. One person's opinion can be ignored. Consistent signals, repeated across time, deserve your attention. Your environment can also be designed to create natural feedback loops. Visual cues, habit trackers, progress journals, and regular checkpoints are all tools to bring awareness to your system. If something is off, your environment should help you notice. If something is improving, your system should reflect that too. Build reminders into your week that nudge you to pause and review. Don't wait until things break to evaluate. Make feedback a normal part of how you operate. The long-term benefit of consistent feedback and course correction is that your system becomes self-sustaining. You don't need constant breakthroughs or resets. You don't need to start over every few months. Instead, your system evolves in small, intelligent ways. You make a tweak here, a shift there, and over time, those adjustments add up to major progress. It's the quiet power of iteration, building slowly, improving constantly, and never drifting too far from your true direction. Course correction doesn't mean weakness. It means wisdom. It means you're paying attention. It means you value your vision enough to adjust your path when needed. Systems that don't evolve die. They become rigid, outdated, and ineffective. But systems that embrace feedback remain alive. They stay relevant. They become trusted frameworks that support you through every season of life. In the next chapter, we'll explore the most personal system of all, the one that lives inside your mind. You'll learn how belief and self-talk silently shape every decision you make and every result you create. Because even the most perfectly structured system can be derailed by a broken internal narrative. And it's time to upgrade that too. Chapter 15, The System of Self-Belief. Behind every action you take, every goal you pursue, and every system you try to build is a silent force that either fuels or frustrates your progress, your self-belief. Long before a habit is formed or a task is completed, there is a thought. That thought carries a message about who you think you are, what you think you can handle, and what kind of life you believe you deserve. This internal narrative functions like an operating system. Most people run it unconsciously, unaware that the scripts looping through their mind are shaping their behavior, their decisions, and ultimately, their future. Without a system of self-belief that supports growth, even the best-designed external systems will struggle to gain traction. Self-belief is not just about confidence, it's about identity. It's the deep-rooted sense of what kind of person you are and what you expect from yourself. It shows up in subtle ways. How you respond to failure. How you speak to yourself when things go wrong. How much responsibility you're willing to take for your own results. People who have strong external systems but weak internal belief structures tend to sabotage their own momentum. They hesitate when they need to move, quit when they need to persist, or accept average when excellence is within reach. The limit is not in their potential, it's in their perception. The reason many people fail to sustain change is because their systems are built on top of an old identity. They try to install new behaviors without updating the beliefs that drive those behaviors. They set goals without believing they are the kind of person who achieves those goals. They speak affirmations but cancel them out with doubt the moment something feels hard. And over time, the old identity reasserts itself, pulling them back into familiar patterns, no matter how advanced the system. To create lasting change, you must build a system of self-belief that matches the structure of the life you're trying to create. This doesn't mean pretending to be someone you're not. It means deliberately shifting your inner dialogue to reflect the truth of your potential rather than the memory of your past. This is not about ego or delusion. It's about creating internal alignment. When your self-concept supports your goals, your behavior becomes more consistent, your decisions become clearer, and your systems become easier to follow. You stop fighting yourself and start building from a place of trust. The system of self-belief begins with awareness. Start paying attention to how you talk to yourself in moments of stress, failure, or uncertainty. What do you say when you miss a target? Fall behind? When things don't go according to plan? Most people default to self-criticism or shame, thinking that harshness will drive discipline. But shame is not a sustainable fuel. It erodes identity. It makes success feel like a fluke and failure feel like confirmation. A powerful belief system, on the other hand, responds with curiosity and accountability. It asks, what happened? What can be learned? What needs to change next time? This mindset doesn't avoid responsibility, it just doesn't weaponize it. Building belief is not a one-time decision. It's a daily practice. Just as you brush your teeth or track your habits, you must reinforce your internal narrative. This doesn't require hours of journaling or meditation. It can be as simple as choosing better language. Catch yourself in negative self-talk and reframe it. Replace, "I always screw this up," with, "I'm learning how to do this better." Shift, "I can't keep up," to, "I'm adjusting my pace to match my priority." These small changes, repeated consistently, reshape the inner script. And as the script changes, so does your behavior. Another powerful tool is evidence. Confidence grows from repetition. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you cast a vote for a new identity. Every time you follow through on your system, you reinforce the belief that you are capable, disciplined, and trustworthy. The more evidence you collect, the more natural those beliefs become. You don't have to convince yourself, you just need to show yourself results. Even small ones create proof. And proof builds belief. You also need to be mindful of comparison. Nothing erodes self-belief faster than measuring your progress against someone else's highlight reel. When you constantly look outward for validation, you disconnect from your own internal metrics. You start to chase someone else's definition of success, even if it doesn't align with your values or your season. The system of self-belief requires boundaries. You must protect your mental space from inputs that undermine your progress. Celebrate others without diminishing yourself. Use inspiration as fuel, not as a mirror. Environment plays a role too. The people you allow into your life either reinforce your self-belief or chip away at it. Spend enough time around cynics, and you'll start to second-guess your ambitions. Spend time with builders and visionaries, and you'll start to normalize growth. You don't need constant praise. You need proximity to people who expect more from you, who speak life into your process, and who reflect back the version of you that you're working to become. Your belief system will either be reinforced or challenged by the company you keep. Choose accordingly. It's also important to remember that belief does not mean certainty. You don't have to know how everything will work out. You just have to believe that you will figure it out. This kind of belief is not arrogance, it's resilience. It's the quiet confidence that even when the path is unclear, you trust yourself to stay the course. Adjust when needed. Keep building. That belief, more than any hack or tactic, is what creates endurance. Systems alone are not enough. Belief is what keeps them running when motivation fades or results take time. The system of self-belief is a foundational layer. It's not visible on the surface, but everything else is built on top of it. If it's weak, cracks will show in every area of life: relationships, work, health, creativity. But when it's strong, it creates a kind of emotional gravity. You carry yourself differently. You approach problems with calm. You persist longer, adapt faster, and recover more quickly. That's what makes belief so powerful. It doesn't just change what you do, it changes how you experience everything you do. In the next chapter, we'll shift from internal belief to external support, specifically, how to build systems of delegation that free your time, expand your capacity, and allow your vision to grow beyond what you can manage alone. Because real freedom doesn't come from doing everything yourself, it comes from building systems others can help run. Chapter 16, Delegation is a system, not a shortcut. Most people think of delegation as a last resort, something you do when you're overwhelmed or too busy to manage everything yourself. They treat it like a relief valve instead of a core system, outsourcing tasks only when things start to break down. This mindset limits growth. True delegation isn't a desperate handoff or a lazy shortcut, it's a strategic structure. It's a design choice. Delegation, when done well, isn't about getting rid of work. It's about multiplying capacity and building leverage into your system. Trying to do everything yourself feels noble at first. It creates a sense of control, a kind of quiet pride in being capable, independent, and involved in every detail. But over time, that control turns into a bottleneck. You become the reason things slow down. You become the system, and the system becomes unsustainable. Energy is drained not from the work itself, but from the weight of having to manage it all. You start to confuse busyness with importance. You wear exhaustion like a badge, forgetting that freedom was the reason you started building systems in the first place. The shift happens when you stop thinking of delegation as giving things away and start thinking of it as building a machine that can run without you. Delegation is not the removal of responsibility, it's the redistribution of responsibility in a way that makes your vision more scalable. When you delegate with clarity and intention, you're not just getting help, you're creating a structure where others can contribute meaningfully to a shared goal. You're not just offloading tasks, you're building trust, developing people, and reinforcing your core systems. The key to effective delegation is systems. Without systems, delegation creates chaos. You can't hand off confusion and expect clarity in return. You can't assign responsibility without expectations, timelines, or context and hope for excellence. Delegation starts by documenting what you do, why you do it, and how it gets done. This includes everything from daily operations to occasional tasks that still play a critical role in maintaining momentum. Systems create repeatability. Repeatability creates confidence. Confidence allows you to let go. Letting go is the most difficult part. People resist delegation because it feels like a loss of control. They fear that no one else will care as much, execute as precisely, or understand the nuances. And that might be true at first. But perfection isn't the goal, progress is. You're not delegating because someone else can do it exactly like you, you're delegating because the task doesn't require your unique focus or energy. Your attention should be directed toward decisions, relationships, creativity, and strategy, the things only you can do. Everything else can and should be systemized and shared. Delegation also requires clear communication. If your instructions are vague, incomplete, or rushed, don't expect consistent results. Clarity is kindness. When you delegate, give context. Set expectations. Explain why the task matters. Provide resources, timelines, and the outcomes you expect, not just the steps but the result. When someone understands not only what to do but why it matters, they take more ownership. They care more. They become invested in the outcome. That's when delegation stops feeling like a transaction and becomes a collaboration. You also need to build feedback into your delegation system. It's not enough to assign a task and disappear. Check in without hovering. Offer support without micromanaging. Let people grow into their roles. Allow space for mistakes, learning, and improvement. The goal is not to hand off a task once, it's to create a loop where work is completed constructively, reviewed constructively, and improved over time. This builds trust in both directions. You trust them to deliver. They trust you to support. Delegation isn't limited to teams or businesses. It applies in every area of life. Household routines can be systemized and shared. Errands can be automated or handed off. Creative work can be supported by virtual assistants, editors, or collaborators. Delegation is about building a support system that allows you to stay focused on your zone of genius. If you spend all your time in maintenance mode, you never create space for growth. But when you delegate effectively, you protect your highest value work. One of the most overlooked benefits of delegation is emotional bandwidth. When you try to manage every detail yourself, your mind becomes crowded. You're always thinking about what needs to be done, what's overdue, and what's falling through the cracks. Delegation frees up that mental space. It creates room to think, to plan, to rest, and to lead. It turns overwhelm into order. It turns chaos into clarity. That clarity then flows back into your work, your relationships, and your energy. To begin building a delegation system, start with a simple inventory. List everything you currently manage, from the smallest task to the biggest responsibility. Then identify what absolutely requires your personal attention. What doesn't? Be honest. Many tasks feel important simply because you're used to doing them. Ask yourself, does this task require my unique skills, insights, or decisions? If not, it belongs in the delegation pipeline. Next, identify potential delegation channels. This could include team members, contractors, service providers, automation tools, collaborative platforms. Choose based on simplicity and reliability. You don't need the most advanced solution, you need the one that fits your current system and removes friction. Begin handing off low-risk, high-frequency tasks first. As trust builds and systems improve, expand gradually. Document everything. Make each task easier to hand off again later. You're not just outsourcing work, you're building an asset that runs without you. Keep in mind that delegation is a skill. It requires practice. You won't get it perfect the first time, but the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. You learn how to communicate better, how to set expectations more clearly, how to build systems that support other people's success. Over time, delegation stops being something you avoid and starts being something you rely on. It becomes a pillar of your system, and with each task you let go of, you reclaim time and energy to direct toward higher-level decisions. What you're really building through delegation is a life that expands beyond your own capacity. You're creating leverage, not by working harder, but by designing a system that includes other people's strengths. You're saying yes to growth without saying yes to exhaustion. That is the core of abundance. It's not doing everything, it's doing the right things, supported by the right people, through systems that make the process sustainable. In the next chapter, we'll talk about what to do when your system fails, because even the best designed structures will eventually break under pressure, complexity, or change. And how you respond in those moments will determine whether your system was a temporary solution or a foundation for something better. Chapter 17, When the System Breaks, Upgrade It. Every system, no matter how carefully designed, eventually encounters friction. Sometimes it happens slowly, a slight drop in efficiency, a creeping sense of fatigue. Other times it's dramatic, a missed opportunity, a crisis, a total collapse. What matters most in those moments isn't whether your system failed, it's how you respond. Because systems are not meant to be permanent. They're meant to evolve. When a system breaks, it's not a sign that you failed. It's a signal that something needs to change. If you treat breakdowns as the end, you miss the opportunity to upgrade. But if you treat them as part of the process, you find your way to something stronger, leaner, and more aligned. The most common mistake people make when a system fails is blaming themselves instead of examining the structure. They internalize the breakdown as personal weakness. They think they just weren't disciplined enough, motivated enough, focused enough. But the truth is that most failure is structural, not personal. The system didn't support the pressure, the pace, or the season. The environment shifted. The demands grew. The inputs changed. The routine that once worked no longer fits. This is not weakness, it's feedback. And if you listen carefully, you'll find your next move. Growth is what breaks systems. As you evolve, your life becomes more complex. Your responsibilities shift. Your goals become bigger and more nuanced. Systems that once felt powerful start to feel constraining. That's not a problem, that's progress. But if you cling to a system past its usefulness, you turn a strength into a liability. You find yourself forcing outdated routines, holding on to workflows that no longer serve you, or trying to make a static structure fit a dynamic life. Systems must be living frameworks, not monuments to the past. When a system begins to break, the first step is not to panic or power through, it's to pause and assess. Look at what's no longer working. Be honest. Where is the friction showing up? What feels heavy, inefficient, or misaligned? Where are you spending energy just to maintain basic function? Often, it's not the whole system that needs to go, it's one layer, one habit, one process that needs refining. You don't need to start from scratch, you need to start from truth. Upgrading a system means adjusting the inputs, modifying the structure, and sometimes rewriting the rules. Maybe the time block that once gave you focus now clashes with a new energy pattern. Maybe the delegation structure needs tightening. Maybe your calendar no longer reflects your current values. Maybe the morning routine that once gave you clarity now feels like an obligation. Systems are not sacred. Their purpose is to serve you, not imprison you. When they stop serving you, they must be updated. One of the most powerful questions you can ask during a breakdown is, what is this trying to teach me? Systems don't break randomly. They break under the weight of change, and that change is trying to show you something about how you've grown, what you've outgrown, or what you've been avoiding. Maybe you need to let go of control. Maybe you need to ask for help. Maybe you've been clinging to a level of productivity that no longer supports your well-being. When you listen to what the system is trying to reveal, the path forward becomes clearer. It's also important to separate emotional reaction from structural analysis. Frustration, fatigue, and confusion are valid feelings, but they aren't reliable tools for redesign. Use them as signals, not strategies. Step back. Zoom out. Examine the system objectively. If someone else were running this system, what would you tell them to fix? What part is overcomplicated? What needs to be automated, delegated, or eliminated entirely? Often, the upgrade is not in doing more, it's in simplifying, clarifying, and streamlining. The people who build resilient systems are not those who avoid failure. They're the ones who expect it. They build with flexibility. They create space for review and revision. They don't confuse structure with rigidity. Their systems are like living organisms, capable of adapting, healing, and growing stronger over time. That adaptability is the real power. It's what separates a short-term streak from a long-term system. When you expect to upgrade, failure becomes part of the strategy. Breakdowns are also a test of identity. They reveal how committed you are to the process. If you quit the moment something no longer works, you were chasing convenience, not building for the long term. But if you lean in, ask better questions, and commit to improvement, you create momentum even in the face of setbacks. You prove to yourself that your progress is not tied to perfection, it's tied to persistence and design. In times of breakdown, don't isolate. Systems often fail quietly, until they don't. Talk to someone. Share what's happening. Let others reflect your blind spots. Often, someone outside your system can see where it's fraying before you can. Their perspective can help you spot unnecessary complexity or offer solutions that hadn't occurred to you. You don't have to rebuild alone. The best systems often come from collaboration, iteration, and shared insight. Upgrades are not just fixes, they're opportunities to integrate everything you've learned. When you rebuild, bring your new wisdom into the process. Maybe now you understand your energy cycles better. Maybe you've developed new tools, skills, or boundaries. Maybe you've let go of perfectionism and are ready to create something more sustainable. Use that growth to design a system that fits who you are now, not who you were when you first built it. And remember, just because something worked well for a season doesn't mean it was meant to last forever. Life moves in rhythms. Systems should too. You will have to adjust again and again as your goals evolve, your priorities shift, and your vision deepens. That is not failure, that is the work. That is the process of living intentionally, of building with awareness, of refusing to let your past structure dictate your future potential. When the system breaks, you have two options. You can cling harder to what no longer works and hope it magically starts working again. You can rise, redesign, and build something better. The second option always leads to growth. It may be uncomfortable, but it creates capacity. It creates clarity. And it deepens your confidence in your ability to navigate complexity. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to carry that confidence forward into the design of your future, not as a fixed destination, but as an evolving system itself. Because your future isn't waiting to be found, it's waiting to be built. And the structures you build now will either limit you or launch you into what's next. Chapter 18, Your Future is a System in Progress. The future is not a mystery to be solved, it is a system to be shaped. The biggest illusion that keeps people stuck is the idea that the future is something that happens to them, a force outside their control, determined by luck, timing, or external validation. But the truth is far more empowering. Your future is not waiting for permission. It's waiting for a structure. It's not found by chance, it's formed by the systems you build today, the habits you maintain, and the values you embody. The future doesn't appear one day as a gift. It emerges as a pattern, a byproduct of your current design. When you understand this, you stop living reactively. You stop waiting for the right moment, the right motivation, or the perfect opportunity. You begin to realize that the most reliable way to predict your future is to examine your present systems. If they're chaotic, inconsistent, or misaligned, your future will reflect that. If they're intentional, repeatable, and rooted in clarity, your future becomes something you can influence and refine. The system is always speaking. It's telling you what you're building, whether or not you're aware of it. A future built by default is shaped by distractions, urgency, and other people's expectations. It reflects whatever noise was loudest, not whatever truth was deepest. But a future built by design follows a different path. It's crafted from within, shaped deliberately over time, and refined with each decision. The beauty of a future built through systems is that it doesn't rely on willpower or luck. It relies on alignment. You create structure around what you value most, and trust that those structures will carry you forward. This approach requires letting go of the myth of sudden transformation. Change doesn't happen in a flash. It happens gradually through consistent structure. People talk about breakthroughs, but breakthroughs are usually the result of 100 small actions layered over time. You don't need to see the entire future to begin. You just need to create a system that supports the next step, and then another, and then another. Over time, the result is something that looks like momentum but feels like clarity. The most powerful futures are not built with perfect vision, they're built with adaptable systems. Because your goals will evolve. Your values will deepen. Your season of life will change. And your system must be able to grow with you. Rigidity breaks under pressure, but flexible systems adapt. They adjust to your energy, your environment, your capacity. They don't lock you into a version of success that no longer fits. They hold space for evolution. A system that supports your future includes multiple dimensions. It contains structure for your time, yes, but also for your learning, your creativity, your relationships, your health. Each part of your life either feeds or drains the others. There is no such thing as a future that thrives in one domain while everything else is falling apart. If your success costs you your peace, your energy, or your relationships, it's not success. It's dysfunction. The goal is not to win in one area, the goal is to design systems that create wholeness across all of them. This doesn't mean everything has to be perfect or balanced at all times. Balance is dynamic, not static. Some seasons will require more from your work. Others from your family, your health, your rest. The point is not to be equal, it's to be intentional. To know why you're choosing what you're choosing, and to make sure your systems are supporting that choice, not undermining it. That's how people move from scattered ambition to focused momentum. They stop trying to manage everything and start managing what matters. They don't eliminate effort, they channel it. The system you build for your future also includes how you process setbacks. There will be delays, mistakes, and wrong turns. But if your system includes reflection, adjustment, and learning, those setbacks become part of your momentum. You don't need a perfect path, you need a path that keeps you moving. When you treat your future like a system in progress, you stop needing everything to go right the first time. You start trusting yourself to build forward no matter what happens. You also start thinking in terms of systems of influence. The people you surround yourself with. The inputs you allow. The conversations you engage in. All of these shape your future. If your system includes consistent exposure to growth, challenge, and support, you accelerate without forcing it. You start seeing opportunities you would have missed in a different environment. You start making decisions from a place of vision, not survival. And slowly, the future you once hoped for begins to feel like your new normal. Vision alone isn't enough. Everyone has dreams, ambitions, things they want. But not everyone builds systems to support those desires. Wanting isn't building. Hoping isn't planning. You must be willing to translate your vision into process. What daily habits reinforce the future you're working toward? What boundaries protect your focus? What structures prevent decision fatigue and emotional burnout? Without those layers, your future stays stuck in your imagination. The process of future building also includes learning how to live with uncertainty. There are no guarantees. You can't control outcomes, only actions. But a system gives you something better than certainty, it gives you direction. It helps you stay in motion even when the path is unclear. It helps you keep showing up when the external rewards haven't arrived yet. It gives you a reason to stay grounded, because the work itself is meaningful. That's the difference between chasing and building. Chasing burns out. Building endures. Eventually, your system becomes a form of self-trust. You stop questioning whether you're doing enough, whether you're on the right path, whether you're falling behind. You start trusting the process, because the process is real. You see it. You live it. You know that the future is not something separate from the present, it is embedded in it. Every decision you make is a vote for the kind of life you're designing. Every layer you build strengthens the structure. Every system you refine becomes a bridge to what's next. This is the essence of abundance. It's not a jackpot you stumble upon, it's a system you build, one that turns your values into behavior, your behavior into results, and your results into a future that reflects what matters most. It's not something you find, it's something you create, one structure at a time. In the next chapter, we'll explore what it means to trust the system fully, not just in building it, but in letting it run. Because the final stage of mastery is not holding tighter, it's knowing when to step back and let the system deliver what it was designed to deliver. Chapter 19, Build the System, then Step Back. The final test of a system is whether it can run without constant supervision. Most people build with tension, keeping their hands on every lever and their eyes on every outcome, afraid that if they look away, everything will fall apart. But control is not the goal of building systems. Freedom is. You don't build a system so you can micromanage it. You build it so you can trust it. At some point, the discipline required isn't in building harder, it's in stepping back. Letting go does not mean abandoning responsibility. It means recognizing that a system, once well designed, should be able to operate with minimal friction. You put in the work up front. You clarify the structure. You refine the flow. You create the automation. You delegate the tasks. You build the feedback loops. Then you test, revise, and adjust. And once those elements are in place, you allow the system to do what it was designed to do: sustain momentum, deliver results, and hold your direction while you focus on higher-level thinking. Many people get stuck between creation and control. They build something strong, but they don't trust it. So they hover. They overthink. They tweak endlessly. They interrupt the flow because they're addicted to effort. They've been taught that working hard is proof of value, so when the system starts to work without them, they panic. They confuse peace with laziness. They confuse trust with carelessness. But the truth is that the ultimate test of a builder is their ability to walk away from the machine and know that it will keep running. Stepping back doesn't mean disengaging, it means shifting your role. You become a steward, not a technician. You move from doing to directing, from reacting to observing. You keep your hand on the pulse, but you no longer feel the need to push every button. You respond when needed. You adjust when appropriate. But your presence is not required for the system to function. This is what allows you to scale, to grow, to rest, and to innovate, because you're no longer trapped inside your own creation. You're free to explore what's next. When you step back, you create space for creativity, for recovery, for insight. Constant action can dull your vision. Always being inside the system makes it harder to see what needs to be improved. But stepping back gives you perspective. You start to notice patterns, weak points, and new opportunities. You gain clarity not by doing more, but by allowing the structure you've built to do its work. That space becomes a source of leverage, allowing you to operate with less effort and more impact. This is especially important if your system involves other people. Trust is contagious. When you refuse to step back, you signal to your team, your collaborators, or your family that you don't believe the system will work without you. That message creates anxiety and dependency. But when you give people space to operate, when you trust the structure you've all contributed to, you create autonomy. You show that the system isn't about you, it's about the mission. And when people believe in the system, they take ownership. They contribute more. They become part of something sustainable. Of course, stepping back requires self-awareness. You have to know when your involvement is helping and when it's hindering. You have to recognize the difference between leadership and control. Leadership creates clarity, then steps aside. Control creates tension, and insists on micromanagement. It takes humility to accept that the system can succeed without your constant input. It takes courage to believe that your earlier work is enough. But that's the reward of building well, freedom earned through structure. There will always be the temptation to jump back in, especially when something small goes wrong, especially when the results aren't immediate. But resilience comes from restraint. Every system experiences minor hiccups. Not every one of them needs your reaction. Let the system absorb the bumps. Let the feedback loop do its job. Intervene only when necessary. Overreaction trains the system to depend on you. Restraint teaches the system to self-correct. That's what turns a smart structure into a self-sustaining one. This principle also applies to personal systems. If you've built habits, routines, or rhythms that serve your growth, don't sabotage them by second-guessing every move. Let the routine carry you. Let the process do its job. Don't interrupt your momentum because of impatience. If the system is aligned, consistent, and adaptable, the results will come. Not always immediately, but predictably. Trust in that rhythm. Trust in what you've built. Stepping back also reinforces identity. It shows that you've moved from someone who chases progress to someone who creates it. It proves that your value is not in how much you hustle, but in how well you design. It marks the transition from operator to architect, from firefighter to system builder. It's one of the most powerful psychological shifts you can make, the realization that real strength lies in stability, not in strain. Still, stepping back doesn't mean stepping away forever. Systems require periodic review. They evolve with you. But that review should come from intention, not insecurity. Set regular times to assess, refine, and recalibrate. Weekly reviews. Monthly reflections. Quarterly adjustments. These checkpoints keep your system alive without pulling you back into daily maintenance. You're not walking away, you're leading from a higher altitude. This chapter, more than any other, is about surrender. Not the passive kind, but the strategic kind. It's about knowing when the work is done and when more work will only interfere. It's about honoring your system by giving it space to perform. And it's about honoring yourself by allowing the freedom that your structure was designed to create. You didn't build the system so you could live inside it like a prisoner. You built it so you could step outside of it, and still trust that it will deliver what you designed it to deliver. This is where peace lives, in the space between effort and trust, in the gap between doing and allowing, in the quiet confidence of a builder who no longer needs to prove anything, because the structure speaks for itself. In the final chapter, we'll talk about what it means to live as an infinite builder, someone who never stops growing, who sees systems not as boxes to live in but as platforms to build from. Because this journey is not about achieving a static outcome, it's about living in a state of continuous creation, fueled by clarity, alignment, and systems that support you for a lifetime. Chapter 20, Live like a System Builder. The goal was never just to build a system, it was to become the kind of person who builds them. Because systems don't only serve you, they shape you. The process of designing structure, aligning your habits, managing your energy, and living with clarity transforms how you think, work, and show up in the world. The system is not the end, it is the beginning. And once you understand how to build it, you are no longer a person waiting for life to happen. You become a system builder, someone who doesn't chase outcomes but creates the conditions in which outcomes emerge. Living like a system builder means seeing life through the lens of structure and sustainability. You stop seeking silver bullets. You stop reacting to every change in emotion or circumstance. You begin asking better questions. What system is creating this result? What structure is missing? What layer needs reinforcing? It's a mindset shift, one that changes everything from how you set goals to how you respond to setbacks. You understand that behind every consistent outcome lies a repeatable process. If you want new outcomes, you don't force them, you build a new process. This way of living removes the need for constant intensity. You stop burning yourself out trying to make dramatic changes. You become someone who trusts slow, consistent growth, because you've seen it work. You've seen the compound effect of habits well kept, time used intentionally, energy protected through boundaries, decisions made with clarity. You stop being impressed by sudden breakthroughs and start being committed to the daily architecture of a well-designed life. You build in layers. You scale with purpose. You evolve through reflection. It also means you stop outsourcing your power. You stop waiting for someone else to rescue you, to discover you, to validate your potential. System builders understand that their future is their responsibility. No one is coming to save them, and no one needs to, because they have tools. They have clarity. They have structure. They have proof that effort aligned with process produces results. When something breaks, they pause, assess, adjust, and continue. Their power doesn't come from luck or timing, it comes from their ability to build, refine, and rebuild. Living like a system builder also changes your relationship with time. You stop rushing. You understand that urgency often leads to error and that impatience can break what consistency would have built. You become more present in your work because you're no longer desperate for immediate validation. You trust the rhythm you've created. You show up. You execute. You allow time to do its work. Ironically, this mindset often leads to faster results, not because you push harder but because you reduce friction and avoid detours. You also start designing systems in more areas of your life. At first, it may have been about productivity or health or finances, but over time, the system builder mindset seeps into everything. You start shaping how you rest, how you connect with others, how you learn, how you recover. You stop seeing areas of your life as disconnected. You start seeing them as integrated parts of a larger ecosystem. And you understand that harmony across that system creates peace, power, and progress. Living like a system builder means owning your identity. You're no longer trying to become someone else. You are creating a version of yourself that is fully aligned with your values, goals, and season of life. That identity becomes your compass. It informs your habits, your routines, your decisions. You stop asking, "What should I do today?" and start asking, "What would the builder in me choose right now?" That one shift reframes your entire relationship with action. You stop acting based on pressure and start acting based on principle. This way of life doesn't remove emotion, but it gives you something stronger than mood. It gives you rhythm. It gives you an anchor. When motivation is low, your system holds you. When doubt creeps in, your structure reminds you who you are. When things fall apart, you're not starting from scratch, you're making adjustments to something already strong. You begin to realize that mastery is not the absence of struggle, it's the ability to keep building through struggle without losing your vision. System builders are not perfectionists. They don't chase flawless execution, they chase clarity, alignment, and progress. They know that perfect systems don't exist, only evolving ones do. And they are not afraid to evolve. They are not afraid to ask new questions, try new tools, rebuild what no longer serves them. They are never too proud to update their process, because they are not loyal to methods. They are loyal to outcomes that matter. And they know that loyalty to results means flexibility with structure. They also don't need to be the smartest or the most talented. They just need to be consistent. That's the quiet superpower of system builders. They don't rely on talent to carry them, they rely on the repeatability of good decisions made in advance. Their creativity flourishes because their time and energy are protected. Their health improves because their routines are sustainable. Their finances grow because their actions are intentional. Their relationships deepen because they've created space for presence. All of it flows from systemized choices. The life of a system builder is not flashy. It's not built on constant urgency or public applause. But it is solid. It is grounded. It is free, because it is not dependent on external validation or chaotic effort. It is built on the quiet discipline of design. A builder's life doesn't look dramatic from the outside, but over time, it becomes extraordinary. Because it's rare. Rare to see someone live in alignment. Rare to see someone who doesn't just set goals but creates environments where those goals become inevitable. And perhaps most importantly, a system builder never stops building. There's always another layer, another refinement, another version of the future to explore. This is a lifelong practice, not a temporary fix. You don't build one system and then rest forever. You keep asking, what's next? You keep building, not because you are incomplete but because you are committed. You are committed to designing a life that supports your values, reflects your growth, unlocks your potential. That's the invitation, to live not as someone chasing results but as someone who creates them, to stop reacting to life and start shaping it, to live with structure on purpose, without apology, to stop proving and start building, to stop waiting and start designing. Because your future is not a mystery, it is a system. And the blueprint is in your hand.